I see Jeff and I see Big Old Pops. What's up, guys? Thanks for hanging here for a second. I don't know how long anybody can hang out. I didn't really make too big of a deal about this one today. But I've been busy, been vacationing, which is nice. Got to hang with my daughters in Maine, which was a wonderful time. I think we all need a good vacation from time to time. And yeah, so I missed the whole live thing. I actually ran into a buddy of mine, Craig, at Guitar Center the other day, and he said, "Hey, I missed your live stream." So sorry if you've been ever expecting me to be tune in and see me on a Thursday or a Wednesday night, like I had been trying to do. But here I am. Maine was wonderful. Brought a little guitar up with me. Brought this cool little thing with me. Brought this thing. Found this at a store not too long ago. This thing is perfect. Just throw it in the back of the car, and it travels great. Throw a little amp in the car. I had a little practice amp, and it worked great. Had a good time. And yeah, I just wanted to get on. I was gonna just kind of take questions and stuff like that. Yes, nice. It was very nice. Yep, thank you. Got to make some new traditions with my kids, which I always enjoy. And I was going to try to take some questions. I really didn't have too much that I wanted to talk about with lesson stuff. And I know, Dad, you don't play, so I'm not going to give you a lesson. Hey, there's Paige. Paige says hi. She wants me to throw the ball. Yes, there you go, girl. That's my girl. But I just wanted to really say hey, and I'm going to be trying to do this a little more often, especially once the school year starts up. Summertime's just crazy for me. It's just been insane. It's been a great summer. I've had a great summer. Um, I'll leave this up once I get done. So I'll just say this for a minute. Anybody who's watching and doesn't know, I work at Maryland Sound. Been here in Baltimore for since '88. I've been with Maryland Sound since 2001, 2002. So like 18 years there. And that's really what I do now is do that and play guitar with a couple of different bands. Obviously, Jeff, you know, I play with Chicken Shack. I play with Catholic School Dropouts. We're playing. Here's some promotion for the band. We're playing Saturday. This coming Saturday. What is that? Let's see, the first, second, the 3rd of June of August. God, I don't know. See, the summer's gone. So we're playing this coming Saturday. Which is the first Saturday in August. And then we have a whole bunch of shows coming up soon too. I got a few things lined up at the Chicken Shack. I've got a Northern Run here coming up. I could tell you. Let me look at my calendar. Keep this up for informational purposes so that I can remember. September 19th, 20th, and 21st, I'm doing Jimmy's Chicken Shack Run. It's all going to be up in the northeastern side. I think Philly, I think New York, and there was Atlantic City, but I think that's gone. I think Rhode Island, something like that. Three shows on that. We're trying. They were working on a Florida thing, you know, and my dad would love that. That's where my dad is. Where are you, Jeff? What part of Florida are you in exactly? Because I know they've been talking about it. They've been talking with it with a couple of people. Yep, the tsunami. Yep, I remember. That was, gosh, that's 21 years ago. Okay, you're in Orlando. Yeah, so you're about an hour from my dad or so. He's over in Cocoa Beach. So, yeah, they were looking at something. An island was out of town, and the dates that they were looking at really weren't going to work for me. And I'm just not too sure if they even got to the point of saying, hey, this is what we're doing, but it ended up not happening. You saw, the Everclear tour. The Everclear run was great. God, I mean, the Everclear tour for me was just one of those tours. Yeah, it rocked. Playing with Feeder, getting to know a band, to me, a brand new band like that. And then like a year later, hearing them on the radio all over the place and in like soundtracks and stuff, that was awesome. You know, those days were really cool, you know. And since then, just, you know, following all the different bands that I toured with, I was going through some of my CDs and I found like the Papa Roach, the original demo from when we had played with Papa Roach and they opened up for us. It's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I still have this. It's you know, still in its plastic and everything. It's the all the touring memories when I sit and chat with people. You know, really there was just some great times. You know, I definitely miss them, but these days I can't even imagine. I mean, I can't imagine being my age and feeling the way I feel and doing what some of the tours that I see guys go out to and do that are 20, 30 years old. You know, that was that time for me. Now's my time to sit and do this kind of stuff. I really enjoy YouTube. I really have a good time. You know, just chatting with everybody. Creed, Three Doors Down, did a bunch of shows with Creed. We used to do so many festivals and would end up on shows with them. Seven Dust, just so many really cool bands from back in the day. And it's funny now. Hootie and the Blowfish, I think they're back out again right now. And I know Darius has been around forever. Yeah, the Creed shows were fun. We had a lot of fun. I mean, every tour was different. You know, it's so funny when you're touring with a major band like that. And then you go from another one to another one. There's certain things that are the same, and then there's certain things that are different. And each tour ends up with a different kind of vibe, you know. And the Everclear tour that we did had Luscious Jackson on it. So, you know, everybody was like, oh, there's cute girls running around all over the place, you know. And then we're you know, the 311 tour, I was going to say, it's touring with 311 was just a completely different thing because with 311, it felt like we were like such buddies with them all the time. We ended up on their bus all the time. They had, you know, just a great couple of buses that they had. And they were just like, yeah, come on over, come hang. They had dogs out with them. They had Nick's dogs. They were puppies at that point. Can't imagine they're still around. It was 20 some years ago. But yeah, those were just great times, and obviously the heyday with the PRSs, and the Soldanos just having amps and guitars, like, to mess around with and play with and say, oh, I love this. Oh, I'm not such a fan of this. The gear stuff is great. Yeah, Rutgers doing country. Yep, it's crazy world. What's happened? Like the guy from Hootie. I guess Hootie and the Blowfish kind of in their own way had a country sound, to a certain degree. They were that kind of country before that kind of country was around, They always had such great vocals, and that's what the Seafoam EG, the vocals that those guys had back then, that's a standard. Now you have to be able to do that stuff. Yep, there's the EG. This thing actually Slash played this. I always post up pictures. And it's been pretty modified now. The neck, my buddy Marty completely sanded down this neck. Yeah, this thing is amazing. I'll never get rid of this bad boy. The PRSs that I have now are the ones I just love. I absolutely love them. This has a Fralin and a couple of, I think this is a Mira. The Mira X, something like that. No, not the X, but a Mira, the original Mira, and then something killer here. And then extra switching that my buddy Marty also did, so that I can get these two pickups together, and I can also split it so that I can have them in single coils. This thing has just a great amount of sound. So my dad has a couple of really cool shots of me with this guitar as well. I love that bad boy. I love getting guitars off of Craigslist, running around and finding cheap guitars on Craigslist and then doing stuff to them. That's a real fun thing for me. One of my favorite guitars right now. Oh, hello, let's mute. One of my favorite guitars that I've been playing. It's probably completely out of tune, but this started off as a made in Mexico Sunburst Strat, and I sanded it and got it all, just taken down and stained it to this purple color, and put a Floyd Rose on it, because why not? Figured if I'm going to do something difficult, may as well really do something difficult. And reverse headstock, because the 80s, got my own little, it's backwards, I guess, but double caster. Oh, thanks, man. Way attitude. It's so out of tune, but it's got that EVH whatever drop thing, But yeah, I'll spare you the out of tunedness. But yeah, this took a good probably 2 years to go from a $60 Craigslist find to what that is. And then there's been other ones, really cool little thing I have. I'm really into these P90s, and just found a real cheap, did a little trading and ended up with this. And I think they only had it for $100 anyway. So what I traded for, barely worth that, right? But there's something cool about P90s to me, especially with the slightly gained up sound. So that's both the pickups. Drop D. Just a cheap, quick little little pickup. It's an SX something or other, vintage series. Yeah, it's cool. It's a tight little guitar. It's nice to just plug in and mess around with. There's just something cool about P90s, especially back the volume down with the guitar. Not bad for a cheap little pickup, yeah, you know. So, anyways, what else has been going on? You too. It's a quiet night here. I guess not much going on here. Any chance you can walk through the lead parts on Dropping Anchor? Yep, actually, that was McD that recorded that. Got to give credit where credit is due. That's a McD thing, and that intro. But I could definitely do that. I could run through a couple of those things for you. That one's a fun one to talk about. Jeff, do you play guitar, or you just really like the way it sounds, all that kind of stuff? Because if you want me to get theoretical about it, I easily could. I'm going to go right to the patch that I use for that when I play with them. I think it might take me a minute to find it here. Yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. Right on. Awesome. So you started in the 90s. Yep. I make it official. My dad got my first guitar. I believe he bought it for me. It was Christmas of '84 was when I got my first one. And just kind of took off from there. A buddy of mine had given me an acoustic to just hang on to and learn, see if I could learn anything. And I really liked it. So Christmas, my dad got me one back then. And I spent all through the 80s learning stuff. And then, by the early 90s was playing out, and then joined Shack in 97. Right. I mean, it was like right when Salmonella Envelope came out. So it was like, I think May of 97 was when I joined, the very beginning of May. So basically for the Dropping Anchor parts, I'll go over a little bit so I can show you. It's all F sharp. Let me go to... So it's that wild F sharp. That F sharp major, so 2, 4, 4, 3, but then the B and the E are open. So you get that. What do they call that? I guess that's an 11 chord, not a sharp 11, because that would be that right there, but it's an 11. And then with an E in it, so that's a 7. So it's an F sharp major 11. Right on, thanks. And Jimmy does this whole kind of, like, I'll just kind of game down with my... See. So he does like this bounce between the... Goes down all 4 strings while bouncing off that. I guess he's kind of bouncing between there. And what I'm doing is kind of at that point bringing in swells, on this real ethereal kind of... Hey, Rimo, what's up, man? So at that point, I'm kind of doing that, and I have it set up to even back then, I like to keep it going as much as I could. So I have it set up to sustain it. So now I can turn the guitar down and play something over it, So that whole thing is really just building up that F sharp major tension between, the major fourth there. I'll call it an 11 because there's no F sharp in between that and the third there, I guess, So you get that whole sound, and then when he gets to the solo, when you get to the solo part, I'm not going to put the octaver on. It's basically, it's all that octave stuff. It's an octave below and an octave above on that particular sound, and it's one of the harmonic minor modes. And I want to say it's, well, let's see. I think it's the it's one of those harmonic ones. Yeah, right on. Yep. Anytime. I've played this song so many times, but it's not often I sit down and think about it. I think Dana, a student I had, Dana Cox, I gave him a pretty decent little lesson on it about a year or so ago, and it was a lot of fun talking about it. So the whole thing kind of goes, the first lead is like on the G string, 6, 7, 6, up to the 5 on the B string. So 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, and then just kind of flittering around with that whole thing. So you're looking at an F sharp, a C sharp, a D, and an E. So that's all kind of melodic minor stuff at that point. If we're still hearing a major against it, because that gives you a minor 6th and a minor 7th. So that's the 7th fret. The 7th fret up to the 5th fret on the E, and then so 5, 7, 6, 5. That little chromatic walk. Good night, Pops. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out, buddy. And then it goes that whole riff right there against that F sharp would be 9 to 11 on the A string, and then up 9, 9, kind of a Hendrixy move, but not there. Right on. And then so the chord progression itself is why I kind of get to that melodic E minor thing too. So that's F sharp, E, G, and C. And that's what that solo is over, if I remember correctly, is over that kind of a shape. And then it's and then Jimmy outlines the vocals with his guitar playing, but I just do that kind of a, always sounds better. And that one definitely has a lot of that whole 16th note like quick strum that it does, right through there, and then it gets the okay, so that kind of I don't know, is that the pre-chorus or is it the bridge? I don't know. I don't even know how to identify a lot of the parts in this song, other than the verse and the solos, but just kind kind of a half-step bend, not a like I did it accidentally at the beginning, and it's obviously brought out with which I do on here. I can just kind of touch it on this particular patch. And then the last time it goes up to the 7th fret on the B string. So that's really pretty much the core of the song, other than the second solo then comes in with that octave thing again. So yeah, that last little thing is a fourth fret squeal on the B on the G string. And then you bend that F sharp up and does that again. And then the bridge part, I guess that's a bridge right here. We go to the B to D. I will not. So F sharp kind of a thing that hit there stands out better there. And then my favorite sound I get to do, I get to do this at the G there. So it does, do this phaser sound. Ends on the G. That's pretty much it. That I remember the first time driving around hearing that on the radio and being like, "Oh, this is awesome hearing this on the radio." It's a really, really cool feeling hearing that, and then hearing high, just on local stations. And then as we started driving around the country, it was like, man, it's so cool. All these stations are playing these songs. And that was always a really, really, really fun one. Man, oh yeah, of course, man. Buy me a beer. No. I actually don't. I really don't drink. It's funny. I was watching, what's that guy? Tony Baker, comedy, that guy that does the whole thing with the animals and cram, and does the voiceovers. He was talking about how he doesn't drink. And people are always like, huh? What? And he's like, yeah, you tell people you don't drink water. And they're like, yeah, all right. And then, but you tell them you don't drink poison. And they're like, what? So it's very rare I drink, maybe a couple of times a year. And I stopped in the Chicken Shack. It was like I'm sitting there on the bus so many nights. I'd be sitting there watching them bring beer. Every club and every bar would just be like bringing you beer into the bus, and I just got so tired of looking at it, and so I just kind of stopped, and it just wasn't my thing anymore. I think you know what I mean. But it just was not where I wanted to be, and I felt like every time I got on stage and didn't have a drink, I felt like I just kind of was a little more together, could really look the guys in the eye a little easier while we're playing and find the groove easier, and I think the alcohol, if you really get into having beer around all the time, or whatever that is, whatever your choice is, if you're living on the road and that's a choice you make, it becomes really difficult to succeed. You really have to have a tough thing going on. It's just got to be in your blood that's what you want to do. For me, I just didn't want to drink and feel like a mess in the mornings. I wanted to be able to go to the radio stations and do the acoustic things with Jimmy and do all that stuff. Thanks, man. Thank you. It was a choice. I didn't really hear a lot of people doing that. I hear a lot about that now. People that just make that choice. And I think it's a smart move for especially younger bands to maybe not preach it. I don't preach it. I don't think anybody should do what I do. I think I'm myself, and I think that's the way life should be. I think we all are here to do what we do. But it's to hear other people's choices, and try to relate them to yourself is always a cool thing if you're open to it. And I felt like as I grew with musicians who also didn't perform while inebriated, it was a lot easier to then later talk to them about something within the night that happened or anything, talk on a different level. And sometimes you don't even do that night. You do it the next day, or, as you're traveling and in the van, or whatever, you guys are talking about the night. Oh yeah, we did this. We want to kind of, instead of doing this, let's end it with 4 hits. That's the kind of stuff that if you're, just drinking all day and all night, you're not going to remember that the song ends with 4 hits right there. Then there's something you talked about on the bus. But if you're coherent enough to remember all those kind of little things, that's what helps make a band tighter to me in that sense. Now, you look at Motley Crue and you look at those guys back in those days or any of that stuff, the Party Animals, of course, the opposite's going to be said. There's always the rules that are broken so quickly and easily by rock and roll. That's what rock and roll is about, right? That's the whole concept of the blues, breaking it all, and the rock and roll taking the rules and throwing them out the window, instead of having just major and minor scales that all line up, which is what I've been talking about all these weeks. The blues just took this sound of this dominant, that chord, that chicken shack chord, that God, what's the guy from Signals Music said, that's the song, that's the chord that makes your mother love AC/DC, that dominant 7. It's so pleasing. And then you go to the 4, which in music, the 1 to the 4 is such a common thing, but you do it with the blues progression, and you break that rule because you're making the. Let me just tune up again, because as I was talking about cheap guitars, cheap guitars have their merits. They're cheap, and they can sometimes be real unique and sound cool, but they don't always hold tune real well. So we're taking in the blues progression, since we're really going to start talking guitar, and Jeff, since you do play, and I know Ryan, that I see Ryan is here. Anybody else that's here, don't feel free to say hey, talk, ask questions. I'm not really trying to talk too much about anything in specific. I'm just kind of taking questions. At this point, talk about whatever. That was a beautiful transition between topics. Well, thank you very much. I talk. I have found that I can sit in a room and talk to myself. I've done that for years. So sitting in a room and talking to myself and have people react a little bit. Hey, sure, I could do that too. Why not? With the guitar in my hand, sure, I'll do that all night long. So anyway, everybody, Logan, thanks for hanging out, man. I appreciate it. The blues broke the rules, and all the rules of breaking, of taking a major scale and having a major 3rd on your 1, that would give you a major 7 on your 1. Well, let's make the 1 sound like that. Let's just take that chord, the 5 chord, and make it the 1, and then make the 4 chord sound like a 5 chord, and it gives this note goes down, this major 3rd goes down to the minor 3rd, essentially. Yeah, right on. My sister's out that way, and I do try to get out to Hagerstown. And my nephew from Hagerstown is now going to school out here at UMBC. So I've got a little whole Hagerstown thing going on for me. That whole little move right there, that chromatic thing, that shouldn't be found in Western theory. And then going back up to the 5, you're just moving that major 3rd up to the 4 and bringing a major 7th back in against the 1. That G sharp is now reintroduced. And then you texted me a picture of chords you were playing. You think starting on the 6th. I'll take a look at it here in just a second. God, I love these pickups. They're cheap as hell and sound great. But that's the whole thing about the blues, is you can take a major and a minor thing and spice it up. That minor sound sounds great when you get to the 4. And then you know, you find your way back to the 1, and you got that major third in there. So then you can kind of mix that minor and major feel up again on the 1. And for me, I find it easiest to think of the major scale at that point over the 1 again, and then kind of, you know, kind of actually the major scale. But I don't really think of the 6. So I don't know. Do I think of the minor? I guess I do think of the minor against it, but by making sure I know where my major third is. You know, this C here is going to bend up to a C sharp, and that's going to give you that feel, but it's all those notes in between where the blues lives, you know. So finding those notes where you can bend and do that is what's key. Going to the D, that third against the D, minor third to major third here. And then the E, you know, figuring out where the G bends to the G sharp. That's that whole major to minor thing. And a fun way to kind of stay in position and do that when you get to the 5. Okay, so I'm talking about how we're thinking of the A as the major, and then D. See how that minor to major again brings you back home to that, kind of lets your ear and your listener know we're going back here. And then the cool thing when you get to the 5, I can't remember if I talked about this in one of my last ones, but it's something that's really that I'm going to bring up over and over again with people, is this whole thing when you go and you take this position and then slide this part, this 5th fret up to the 6th fret on the D, and the 6th fret up to the 7th, that little dyad move, those 2 notes together, and then bring that E in as your 5. And now you can play the minor pentatonic with the dropped root. So in other words, instead of playing the A minor pentatonic against, which, you know, that's like blues level 1, you know, using the minor pentatonic over all of it and just kind of bending into the right notes. If you really want to start moving your blues around some, move this A, forget about it. Forget about it. Don't play that there. Play the 4th fret. So your new pentatonic pattern that you have all within this position, you have your minor for your 1 and your 4, but also your major for your 1, and all 4 other portions of it. You know, all the things that would link. You know, anywhere where you can find that major third, go down a step, a half step, and you can just bend it and get that kind of a feel, that minor to major feel. And that's really the essence of it all. And so this whole drop root against the 5. So let's, instead of playing the 5th fret, let's concentrate on this, which becomes the 3rd of the E. We got the G sharp here. So that you instantly hear, your ear is going, there's something different there, instead of, you hear it, and it's helping get, you can even bend to it. Well, I even hit it there. So you tried it, that becomes the avoid note. The root of your blues progression, the A, when you get to the 5, kind of becomes an avoid note because it's the 4, which, as we discussed before in one of the other, I think my first one, that 4 just gets so distant. But we want to try to bring out that major third and the 7th. We want to bring out that minor 7th against the major third. And then that's where this whole little dyad. So that's that whole transition thing. So let's see what Ryan's talking about. Ryan wrote something. Oh, send it to me. Oh man, I gotta lock my screen. Hold on. What is going on here? Okay, we got a B minor 7 to E minor 7. Okay. And then you got what looks like that's a dominant, even if you don't play that. You got a 7, 5, 6, 5, 5. That's a dominant. And then a D major 7. Yep. Yeah, so that D major 7 is bringing you back home. I'll get right to that other question there, Jeff. Let's see. Yeah, so that D major 7, that sounds like your home chord, you know? So your progression is kind of a B minor, you know? So that an alternative for that, if you really want to bring out the 7 feel of this, would be to continue that 6th fret of the G from your A. Keep that there, and that, instead of duplicating your D note again, you can see how that serves. That note is now serving as the major 7th against that D, whereas against the A, it's the major 3rd. And that kind of brings your ear back home. So I would call that progression D major. And it's like you're starting on the relative minor and working up a 4th from there, which would be officially the 2 of the D major. And then you're going to an A dominant. And remember, the dominant feel is kind of implying the 5 to 1 move. That whole that 5 to 1, the dominant sound, that goes back to that Western theory that we were talking about, that the blues was breaking the rules. In A major, well, let's stick to the key of your progression. So let's harmonize it. So if we harmonize D, yeah, D major 7 is the home for sure. And when you hear it, there's no denying it, you know, and that's where you are. I'm going to clean up. Oh. I'm going to go ahead and do this real quick. Yep, so now. So a little delay. We'll just keep that there. So officially, this is what I would call a 6-2-5-1 progression. You're going from the 6, which is a minor. Okay, and then so that's going to imply over this progression that you can play your Aeolian there. And then you go to that 2 against there. So if you're E, that's the 2, then the 5, and then the 1. So let's do that real quick. It's easiest, I think, for you guys to see this move if I do this with thirds. So D to the 3rd, the major 3rd of D is going to be that F sharp. And then so the progression, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. That's that whole 1-4-7, 3-6-2-5, basically. We're skipping numbers in the phone number because we're skipping strings, but that's what that all kind of spells out. And it gives you a way to look at each string that way. So the 1, 1 is the major scale. Sorry. D major scale. So if we add the 3rd to it, I'm going to not do it in this dissonant spot here. I'm going to do it up higher so you can really hear it. Adding the major 3rd, we go up a whole step to get E and stay in key. We're going to have a minor 3rd because D has F sharp and C sharp. Those are the 2 sharps within the progression. But we don't have to think about it that way. We can just know that if I'm in D major, which we've said that this is, That gives me access to a D major chord, an E minor chord, because we've gone up a whole step. Another whole step is going to be that F sharp, which we found here. And then we're going to have to add a minor third to that, which would be that A. So because we can't have a major third there, that gives us an A sharp. So we have a major chord, 2 minors, and then another major. So your G is going to have a B as the third, and then your A is going to be a third as well. And that's where we hit that. Instantly, it's telling us we can go back home if we want right there. That's that dominant 5. So what we have on the A is an A, and then the third is going to be that C sharp, and the 5th of A is going to be the next string from the A string. That's going to be on the D string at the 14th fret here. That's going to be an E. A, C sharp, E. Here's E. And then our dominant 7th, we need to stay in key. We know we have a G here against that F sharp. I'm sorry, against the E. That's our minor third there. It's acting as the minor third for the E. And here in A, it's acting as the dominant 7. And one of the reasons why that's getting your ear to go home is that half step movement up to the D. That's C sharp to D. But if we continue our pattern of going whole step and getting a minor, another whole step and having a minor, going a half step up, whole step, half step, and having a major, and then another major. That 4 and the 5 within the phone number that we know are major shapes. We know we have that within our fingertips. So now we have this. Instead of having a D against it, we have that relative minor. That B that you're starting your progression with is already kind of implying that is where you could go, you know. So just those 2 chords alone could be something within your progression. These alone, too, this 2-5-7 move is a very common jazz progression, especially different variations of it. You know, that's a real common move there, Ryan. So hearing it and knowing that you're saying, okay, this is familiar, but I'm kind of doing my own thing with it. That's exactly what writing's about. It's just kind of finding something you like. And then so within that progression, Ryan, I mean, let's see. I could probably try to loop this and see what we got. I'm just going to go with whatever I have in the looper at the moment. I don't even know if you guys are going to hear it. Unless I do that and knock a bunch of things over, then you could probably hear it. Let's at least start with a click track. Hold on, what we got here. And let me make this like a 8-bar. And I have no idea what we'll get. There's the 5. So instantly you can kind of start to think to yourself, okay, D major pentatonic. Start breaking down your triads. D major pentatonic. B minor, you have the same position available to you right here. So then you also have this A mixolydian, which is the 5. 5 1 4 3 5 1 4 5 1 4 7 3 6 2 5 1 4 7 3 6. Going back to this phone number theory. So you have everything, all of the modes of D major available to you over that progression. And therefore you have all of the modes of B minor. If you think Aeolian, Aeolian. And that would be that's where that minor comes in on the E. So B Aeolian, you could live there like the whole time and then just accent certain notes. And then what we can do is also find, for when you go to that A, which is a nice change, to kind of make sure that you're not playing the same things. You hear everything happening. You want to make sure you have something set up for A. Let's stay in that same position. Let's kind of find some things that we can do in position. So there's your B minor. Here's your D major. And we know we have a major shape. So here's A minor, here's A. And I know if I want to make a major shape, I can always go up a string and back a fret. So from the 10th fret and then up to the E string, 9th fret, and then 12th fret, that's my major shape. And then I can go down 2 strings and 2 frets. So I want to try to find an A major pentatonic shape that's here, because I don't want to have to try to go back to this and go A major and think all this stuff for a second. So there's my major shape. That position 1. Position 2 is going to be right here. So you see that position 2 major shape. I can find it on the D string right here at the 7th fret. And that's just an extension of our pentatonic major shape. And it really nicely leads to, this shape, which we all kind of know as this minor box position, C sharp minor. I'm sorry, F sharp minor. That shape starting here is going to give you your major shape. So over here we have now, over that A position, we have some stuff we can play. So let's just try. I'm just going to try to stay in the 7th fret area. So I'm still thinking B minor there, but now I can think this A major. And then so we need something for D. So we have this shape available to us for both chords, the first 2 chords, and everything therein, the 4 other shapes associated. Everything associated there. And then when you go to that A, you can definitely get a shift in feel and sound by moving to that other shape. That's that A major shape. And then it has the 2nd in it of A. And then you're going to have the major 6th. And that major 6th is located on the B string at the 7th fret. And then your root again is right here at the 10th fret where we found our A. So you have all this. So by that shows me right here, breaking from my pentatonic, I want to kind of now look for something that's going to grab the ear when you go to that. I don't want to continue to play this minor pentatonic shape or major pentatonic shape. I want to kind of now bring those notes when I get to that A. major now. We want to try to find something here in D major. Well, oh yeah, so there, right. So there's our D major. So our E minor, like I said, we can. Oh, okay. So right, that's what I skipped. Is how we can kind of add our fourth pentatonic shape, all within that same position. Still, the E minor is going to give us this shape, the 7-10 on the A string. That E being our root, 7-10, then 7-9, 7-9, 8-10, 7-10 again. I think of that as position 4 for the minor. So that's your E minor, position 4, which, you know, you can slip up to that, you know, and get there for a second. Oh, but let's get to that where our major shape is. So the major shape again is going to just be that B minor shape, but just trying to feature that D note, you know. So there's that A. So all within that kind of position, you have four modes of the pentatonic, even though 2 of them are shared. You got 4 different starting and stopping points where you can think of each chord and kind of get that vision in your head of where you're going, where you're traveling over that. And then minor box. So yeah, here, let me review what you guys have been saying here. So if I ever switch, it text to picture, got the chords. Question up in queue. But I mind talking about slow change. Definitely we'll talk about slow change for a second. I love slow change, bro. Slow change. Little caffeine for you. Little again, my theory's solid. Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. And it seems like Jimmy isn't very theory based. You know what? You're absolutely right. Logan, are you still there? Give me a holler if you are. Either way, yeah. Really, really good point. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to touch on that within the concept of slow change, because Jimmy writes, he writes chord shapes, and he writes ideas based on what that chord just made him feel. You're here. Okay, great. Yeah. So I'm going to take Jeff and Logan. I'm going to take both your all's kind of comments here, and I'm going to talk about them all at once. So let's see. And yeah, the B Aeolian is where you're improvising today. And yeah, so that Aeolian, I'm going to sum this up. You can live in that jam. You can really, what I'm trying to get at, and I'm not really quite getting there with the playing yet. I think I'm a little clean. I could probably add some spice to it all for sure. But I'm trying to bring out how by finding the root of the chord and then finding the third of each of those chords that you're working on within your progression, whether it's a 2-chord thing, a 4-chord thing, or even just a 1-chord thing, just figuring out the third is really essential in figuring out a starting point. The major third or the minor third is really where you are going to start the walk. You know, it's going to make sure that the journey is going along proper. So if I start this and I start thinking first off in B pentatonic, and then go ahead and try to add this Aeolian note to the pentatonic instead of just, and then I throw in, or even, then that over the E, that'll shift from just the bluesy feel, and then you can, and then when you get to the A, kind of just, here's your A, you know, just start making major shapes here. But it can't be that major 7. It has to be a minor 7. So that's where this phone number to me comes in handy, because now you have that 5 as a reference point, and you know wherever you have your A, you're going to have a 5 shape. And it's a great way. The 5 is a great way to learn your position shift on the B, because here we are on the A of the D string at the 7th fret, And so the 5, 1, and then 4, your 3 major shapes in a row. You have to shift at that beat. I'm trying not to get glare on this guitar, so that you can see it. And it's probably because I have this light just so directly on me right now. But maybe that'll help a little bit. But that 5 shape. It's a great locator, it's a great way to kind of identify that stuff. So let me just jam over this again. Let me get drums too. Wow. A little bass. Yeah, good progression there, Rye. Nice work. I like it. Oh, thank you. Tasty. Yes, thank you. That just comes from position thinking, and that really, when I got to the E, change your tempo, like instead of just doing 8 notes or do some triplets in there, really try to bring that home, and outlining the triad of whatever the new chord is always going to help the listener associate you knowing what the change is, and it's going to help you associate a new position that you might get up to. Like, as you can see, when I moved up, I just really tried to find my home base, which was that D there. And I knew that when I found it over the B, it was going to be safe because it was acting as, it would be in the minor third and it would sound nice and sweet. So it works that way. And then over the E, that D is going to be acting as the 7th, the dominant 7th. Then over the A, it's going to be acting as a 4th. So we wouldn't really want to necessarily feature it. We would want to get down a half step, and that's going to bring us to the C sharp, which is the 3rd of that A, which is nice. That's nice. That's good stuff there, right? So, hey, let's talk about slow change, and let's talk about writing without theory. Writing without theory is something that Jimmy was really good at. That whole do-right is for him is this shape the entire time. It's that dominant shape, and when you get to the D minor, that last chord of the progression of the verse progression, and I go back up. This same shape, just because you go to the 5 string, the A, that now becomes minor. That Beatles move of making the major 4, making the major 4 minor for a second, and then that lends the listener's ear to just go. That chromatic move of it going. He didn't think to himself, I'm going to rip off the Beatles. I'm going to do the 4 move right there where it goes. No, he was writing this shape. guitar work for him. He could read his poem, his lyrics, his whatever it is he's reading. That at that point, the whole song is written around those shapes. They're all, and they're doing the same things that I'm kind of talking about. You're moving to the minor. Instead of being, when you're at this minor 4, you have to bring out this C. He didn't think to himself, man, I'll bring out that C right there. You get to the bridge here. It's the same thing. So the bridge goes F sharp, C sharp, B, D. Then it repeats itself. So that shape, that dominant 7 shape, even though when you go to the 5th string, it becomes the minor 7 shape, that is the vehicle for that song being what it is. That allowed him to write the song and perform it the way that he wanted to, the way he heard it. And the rules that are broken in it are well-defined rules. They're actually, they do what they do. They're there. But he did a great job with that song of being able to say this, every progression to me, and this is interesting. And I've really come up with a nice way of telling my story. And, it's funny because it's a perfect song for that. What do I do right? Well, he didn't do anything as far as writing theory about it, but the theory behind it all is just really, really cool. It's a great song to sit and analyze. And when you realize that all he's really doing is just taking the shape. So that F sharp minor 7 there on the 10th fret, that's the first chord of the bridge. And then the C sharp dominant 7, and then B dominant 7. That doesn't happen in Western theory. That's just not, you don't get 2 dominant chords the whole step apart. And when you harmonize Western theory, you get 1 dominant chord and it starts at the 5th. So here we are making in the key of A, we're making the 3rd a dominant, and then we're making the 2nd a dominant, and then we're going to the 4 as a minor. So phone's lighting up here. You have all sorts of stuff going on. Let's see. And then the last chord is that E, which, hey, wouldn't you know it? It's the 5. There's where the dominant 7 belongs. And it's perfect placement because it lends your ear back to the 1, and so that whole bridge ends with that. It skips it the first time. So that's that whole thing. So let me slow change, one of my all-time favorite songs. And I just remember being on the bus with Jimmy while we were writing it and involved in it, and he just kept throwing in these parts and just making it so twisted and quirky by the end of it. It's all the parts coming back at you. But his whole idea, I love that chord. Basically here in drop D, if you do a bar, like 3rd fret and 3rd fret, and then do the 5th fret here, you're getting that chord, which depending on what the bass plays, can be a number of things, but so that one is so weird because the way the picking is, it's like 3, 4. So, and that sounds like it would be the pickup to it, but it's 3, 4, and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a. So yeah, that's how. So this whole intro part here is the pickup. And three and three and four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a. So I guess in the intro we're not really doing that, but this chord came into play. This was something that we just started really messing with, and we loved it. And it comes into play here in a little bit. So I guess in the beginning, it's just this whole third fret kind of a bar. So it starts for me with a kind of a smack and then a up pick. One E and a two E and a. So, and that's the basis of the verse and the intro. And so that's really, I guess, an F and D, and then going up to a C. So it's really kind of a minor seventh, is kind of a feel, you know, for the official chord would be all right, so that's a killer little spot. That's all Jimmy right there. Like this whole song really musically is Jimmy, you know, like it's just him sitting there every night over and over again, kind of adding to it. And it was just so great watching him do that. So this shape is 5th fret on the A and then 7th frets on the G and B. And that's a really cool little just way to clean up a major chord. Don't even play the D string. And then so you drop the position down so that D goes to now an A because we're drop D. So that's officially like an A suspended 4th with a major 6th in it. What? And then it goes to a D9 because we have the 5th fret and then the 5th fret on the G and the 5th fret on the B. So 5th fret on A, 5th on G, 5th on B. So you got. So that move is real quick. So it's just, you know. And we would always really bring that out with our strumming hands when we play that live, you know. And then so the last chord there in that shape is I put my ring finger here on the 5th fret, so that's now a G. So we're looking at a G chord, and then you got an octave for that up here, and then you just kind of we bar there. So you're really just kind of doing this power chord for G. You hit it twice. So that whole thing, that whole shape slides down a whole step and then lifts off, and that's that whole chorus. Essentially, other than the end part of every other time. So that thing, see, like the second time around has a little bit of a turnaround. So it goes from the 5th fret to the 3rd to the 7th back down to the 5th. And then a pull off. So the whole thing kind of just has to have that D minor sound, you know. And then it back into the verse, I guess. And then the rest of the song really kind of gets, that's where this shape kind of comes in. That whole ending part there where it gets to that B flat sound. And that's all about dynamics at that point. At that point, it's about the wave. It's about how slow change is like a wave, how our lives are a wave, you know, and how you could be the stone and let it wash over you and just let it, you know, just live with it, you know, other than fighting the wave. And at that point, it's really, what I love about that song really is the dynamic of it. It's how it goes from this heavy thing. Oh yeah, the whole middle riff there too. So that's a great little riff. I can show you that real quick too. So that whole intro where that whole middle part, the instrumental part where it gets really heavy. So we get that whole kind of a 9 sound going on there too. So it's so that riff is open, we're drop D, remember, open 5/7 on the D string, and then up to the A string, and then back down to that low D. 057, 057. The second 5 is up on the A, and then shift your position just a half step to 6/8. And that's pretty much that whole riff there. And it's just a real quick chromatic move, but it just has such impact, you know, like the waves got real rough for a second and the stones rolling around. But then at the end, so this is kind of a polyrhythm thing. It's the drum beat is playing a 4 pattern and it does it 4 times, but the stops within the guitar are doing something that repeats itself every 3 times. So, and then at the very end of the pattern for the drums, the guitar has to catch up to itself. So it's really weird. I'm not going to bother trying to play through that whole part because it really just drones, but the 3 guitar parts are basically, so 8th fret, and 10th fret on your low strings, down a half step, and with a slide the second time, so, and then big open harmonics on the 5th fret, and then that loops over it. That riff starts over again, but the drums are going in 4s. something like that at the end there. But that's a really, really, really cool little pattern. And that's an example of Jimmy just kind of not having any idea of the chords. And I'd sit there watching him play it and be going, "Ooh, that's cool," because he's doing a 4 and a 6 in there over that A, man. That's really, I love that. So yeah, that whole riff, yep. So let's see. You're a sucker for Pure, yep. My other favorites are Face It and Lazy Boy Dash. Yeah, we kind of went over those. Slow Change in particular just rocked. Yeah, I always loved playing that. We didn't really play it a lot. The guys now, when I get with them, they're I got to tell you, Jerome and Christian are always like, "Please, can we play Face It?" And I'm like, "Man, I got my patches ready." You know, we sound checked it, but we didn't play it at one of the last shows. But it would have been. It's probably going to come up within that run there. I really would not be surprised. So why didn't? Okay, right. To get back to the other part of that question, so Slow Change really was one of those songs that, when you put the record together from front to back, it didn't fit with the songs that were on that album. But what they really wanted to do was take some of the songs that we had recorded, and do something with them, you know. And the whole idea of the Slow Change EP, of it being a song that is kind of strong enough on its own to kind of be the backbone of the EP itself, and then you also get the remixed version of Do Right. I think that had Broke Down Palace on it, if I remember correctly, and I feel like there was something else on it. And trust me, we really wanted Slow Change on the main album, but when we got to the structure of the album and the order of the songs and the flow, like, to me, that's one of those CDs that still, when I put it on, I can manage to separate from it and listen to it and feel like I'm not the guy playing that guitar sometimes, because it has a flow. It has a kind of a thing where the next song kind of brings you into the next song. And that's why Pure is where it is when in the album. And that's why Lazy Boy Dash comes in so early. Couple of versions, and Smiling, right? Smiling was what I was thinking. Yes. Smiling was the other one. Smiling was written on the bus. You know, it was just one of those heartbreak songs where he's just like, you know, I'm going to take the bad and write something that sounds good, you know, and that was that whole idea. And that Smiling is great. So just the B to the C and then F sharp to G. But with this, the third fret of the B and E strings. So yeah, I do. I wish the same thing, you know. And I got to tell you, we were so close to releasing Lazy Boy Dash, and I feel like that just if we could have if we could have released Lazy Boy Dash at the beginning of 2000, I just feel like that would have paved the way. Everything would have really been different for us. I really feel like it could have all changed for us that year. But what happened was the record industry, the record label industry blew to pieces. It fell apart. And at the end of the year with Do Right, we were breaking into top 40. And the label kind of had this thing, like, if you're not really top 10 by the end of the year, you don't get a lot of push at the beginning of the year. And we had done a lot with Do Right. We taught the new people at that label how to do things that we then saw them doing for other bands that were on that label. And it was really frustrating. And we just wanted to have them do those things for us and have them do it for Lazy Boy Dash, starting with the beginning of 2000. And just the way it all happened, it just never happened. But that was what was for us going to pave the way of Slow Change kind of being like maybe having a little more attention. But I think to me, it's special. Slow Change is one of those songs that I think like, I mean, I get on YouTube and I'll read comments and it still blows me away that people, there's comments like 6 months ago where somebody will say, God, I love this band. Oh my God, how come I didn't know about this? Or, oh, this reminds me of my big brother. I remember him listening to this. Well, this actually is a lot better than I thought, like stuff like that, where I'm like, yes, right on. We have kind of good comments under all the songs. And I feel like the popular songs are the ones that get the most plays from what I see. Who knows if I'll get copyright strikes for playing what we did. I really doubt it. But it's conceivable in the way that YouTube is now. They have people watching everything. But that whole thing, it just all really could have been so different. It really just could have been such a different world for us. And I think like I said, it made Lazy Boy even more special, and it made Slow Change even more special to me, because when I play those songs now at a show, when I play Lazy Boy, like that's the biggest connection I have to the crowd. If we played Face It, maybe that would be, but right now, like when I play Lazy Boy and I see that reaction, and that's something that we all really did together, that I helped I planted a seed in Jimmy's head, and he said, "Oh my God, that's actually from a plant that I started a long time ago. Let's put these plants together," and that's what we got. That I love it, and Slow Change to me is like that next level of that, because that's such a hidden gem in the world of the Shack music, and all that kind of stuff, and it does have such a crazy little riff, and it's such a cool dynamic part, and I felt like that could have made it to the radio. I felt like if we could have done Lazy Boy Dash, we could have picked that. We really, at that point, if Lazy Boy had done what I feel like it could have done, we could almost pick anything off that album, and then or have just gone ahead and released Slow Change, because on that song you got Brandon from Incubus playing djembe, and then you had Brian from Underfoot singing all those just beautiful background vocals, and it just still gives me chills when I hear it. And you remember hearing Face It before? You probably heard that there was a few songs that were kind of like pre-released on a little disc, and I believe Face It was one of them. And Face It was just so much fun to do, and it was just, I had to redesign my pedal board because of Face It. That was one of those songs that just changed everything, as far as like effects and what led me to all this stuff. But yeah, I really felt like all that as well, Jeff, that Slow Change, Lazy Boy Dash. I really felt like Lazy Boy, and oh, hey Lucas, thanks brother. Lazy Boy Dash does, it's just a cool thing. And we had I can't remember this, the singer from The Urge, I want to say his name was Steve, came in. We had guest people on these songs, and then what blew me away was that the next album for the Shack that was released with the Faces. Somebody's gonna have to remind me. That that album has a co-write on almost every one of them, and almost all of those co-write names are big people. Between Butch Walker and Aaron Lewis and Dude Man from Stained, they were all like big people. So I really thought that album was going to at least pick up somewhere. But at that point, the labels, everything had changed, and then the music scene had changed. It's just as much. Playing Face It live still to this day. People will come up to me and be like, "Yeah, I remember seeing your face on the Jumbotron at Raven Stadium. We were the first band to play music at Raven Stadium." Represent, yes, thank you. That was the album with the faces. And just being like this 50-foot tall me and being allowed to play the intro to Face It for like an extra 15, 20 minutes, it was like I just felt like I was playing it forever. It was just so awesome. Oh yeah, I did. I covered the Lazy Boy Dash. Yep. I did go over that. That's a fun jam. Yep. Tremonti. Yeah, was he at that one? Was that one of the Creed ones? Probably. Tremonti used to hang and watch us, and I used to hang and watch them. I really like Mark Tremonti. He's just such a good dude, and was just so into us. It was just felt so good to be able to have somebody that was that big just say, I can't wait to sit there and watch you guys. And same with Seven Dust, all those years back then. That was all just such a blast. I'm trying to think what else. One more. One thing. I'll go. Before I go, because I just realized it's like 9:30. I've been on for a bit. And I got to get up for work in the morning. You guys we were talking about shapes. Logan, you were asking about the non-theory side of Jimmy. That song Outhouse. So that whole thing, Jimmy likes to play it with one finger. I can't. I have to do it. Especially when you get to. So that's my part, but Jimmy. So that whole song he does with one finger. And it's so hard for me to try to do it with one finger. I have it worked out. But that's that whole non-theory side that gave him something that's so theoretically like, wow, that's a great song. Do Jimmy and I, do we have an urge? Those guys do write together. Yes, Strange. Tremonti, right. Yes, Tremonti co-wrote Strange. Yep, you're right. Yep, that's right. I think almost every one of those was a co-write, which is awesome. I thought, and that's why I said I felt like they could have taken almost any one of those songs as well and figured out a way to market the album just a little bit better. Do we have the urge to do more writing together now? So Jimmy and the band, when I play with Shaq, I'm just filling in at this point for Island. If and even then at this point, sometimes it's because Matt couldn't make it. Like Matt Jones will fill in for Island. I'll fill in for Island. Island plays with Candlebox, so he can't always be around for the Shaq shows. And they're really trying to do a lot more shows now. They've got a good base still, a really good following, and the crowd is always awesome. I love the crowds that come to the Shaq shows. And so they are writing. They are currently in the process of writing. He doesn't come to me and say, hey, do you have any ideas? And Jimmy really is kind of, hey, Ryan, thank you, brother. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you tomorrow, maybe. I know you were sick today. I got you. So have a good one, bro. He hasn't ever come to me since this point and said, hey, you want to write? I know Jerome and Christian have kind of said, hey, it'd be fun to jam. It'd be great to, get together and jam out and stuff. Dude, thank you. I'm not going to read that comment, but dude, those guys are all great. I think the thing about the Shack is, each one of the guitarists has really tried to bring something to the table in their own way. And man, Matt busted his ass for that album. Casey busted his ass for the Represent album. Matt, the album that he was on. They're, you know, and the guys are working on something right now with Island. And Island is this shredder. If you haven't watched any of his old band stuff, his playing is ridiculously phenomenal. And you know, Matt goes out and plays with Cowboy Mouth, and his playing is such a blues and roots based style, but also so technically based as well. Hey, Kitty, you know that it's everybody had kind of their own little thing, and my thing was really I really love improvising and jamming, and also writing. You know, and so I was lucky to be in that phase with where Jimmy was really still writing with the band pretty regularly. Whereas right now he tends to have so many songs that, I mean, he has so many songs. He sits and writes so many things that just come to him out of nowhere. Right on. Thanks, Logan. Yeah, I'm going to head out of here in a second too. You know, he just has such an output of his own stuff and with the things that they're trying to do that I'm definitely kind of, you know, on the back burner. I've got some original stuff. The things I'm doing now are mostly the instrumental things I'm doing. I'll play out with them when they ask, and I do Catholic School Dropouts. You know, that's my fun cover band right now. And if you get a chance and you want to find some of this stuff that I was writing with my band Break the Current, we split up a year or so ago, but we have a couple of videos up. And it was definitely more of a you know, mid 90s or I guess later 90s sounds that we were going for, but it's definitely rocking too, you know. So Break the Current, check that stuff out. But seriously, I've been chatting for a while. Thanks everybody for hanging. This really was a lot of fun. I like doing this where you guys want to ask questions, and even just having a few of you guys here asking like specific questions. Yeah, this was great, you know. So yeah, so thank you. Good night. Peace out, you guys. Jeff, Ryan, Logan, everybody that's watching on the resave. I'll save this. Good night, kiddies. See you later, guys. Peace out. Thank you. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, everything like that. All the things that the good YouTubers say. Bye.